The space station called Eternal Accord floated in the darkness between stars. It was the largest structure ever built by living hands. 12 species had come together to create it, and for 3,000 years, it had been the center of galactic peace. Every important decision was made here. Every treaty was signed in its great halls. The beings who walked its corridors believed they had created something that would last forever. Ambassador Yuna stood at her window and watched the stars. She was a small woman with black hair and calm eyes. She had been sent from Earth to represent humanity in front of the Galactic Coalition. It was supposed to be an honor. But Yuna knew the truth. The other species did not respect humans. They saw Earth as a small, wet planet on the edge of nowhere. They saw humans as weak creatures who lived short lives and died easily. Yuna had been on the station for 6 months now. She had smiled through every insult. She had nodded politely when the other ambassadors talked over her. She had pretended not to notice when they laughed at human technology, human art, and human dreams. She was patient. She had learned patience from her grandmother, who had survived a war that killed millions. Her grandmother had taught her that the quiet ones often win in the end. The door behind her opened. Her assistant, a young man named Hyun-woo, walked in with a tablet in his hands. His face was pale. "Ambassador," he said. "Another report." Yuna did not turn from the window. "How many this time?" "A cargo ship, 47 crew members. They vanished near the border of Dominion space 3 days ago." Yuna closed her eyes. This was the 5th ship in 2 months. The Dominion was a species of warriors. They were tall, strong, and covered in thick gray skin. Their bones were like iron. Their claws could tear through metal. For centuries, they had conquered weaker species and taken their worlds. Now, they were part of the coalition. But old habits died hard. "Did you bring this to the council?" Yuna asked. "Yes." They said there was no proof the Dominion was involved. They said, "Our ships probably had mechanical failures." Yuna finally turned. Her face showed nothing. 47 people do not vanish because of mechanical failures. "I know," Hyun-woo said. "But the council does not want to believe us. To them, we are children, new to the stars. They think we do not understand how things work out here." Yuna walked to her desk and sat down. She looked at the tablet and scrolled through the report. Names and faces appeared on the screen. Families who would never see their loved ones again. She memorized each one. "Have you told Earth Command?" she asked. "Yes. They are aware. But they say we must follow proper channels. We cannot accuse the Dominion without evidence." Yuna set the tablet down. "Proper channels. The Dominion has been raiding our ships for months. They take our people. They sell them as slaves. They use them for sport in their fighting arenas. And we must follow proper channels." Hyun-woo said nothing. There was nothing to say. Far across the station, in a chamber decorated with weapons and skulls, High Arbiter Thelvok sat on his throne. He was the leader of the Dominion delegation, and he was very pleased with himself. His people had been taking humans for almost a year now, and no one had stopped them. The coalition turned a blind eye because they feared the Dominion's military power, and the humans were too weak to fight back. Thelvok looked at the report his soldiers had sent him. The cargo ship they had captured had been full of useful things: medicine, food, technology, and of course, the humans themselves. They were small and fragile, but they worked hard when properly motivated. His second in command, a scarred warrior named Brel, entered the room and knelt before him. "The prisoners have been delivered to Velrath 9, Brel said. "They are already being processed." "Good," Thelvok said. "And the children?" "Separated as you ordered. The healthy ones will be sent to the homeworld. Chief Vorath has requested fresh entertainment for the arena." Thelvok smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "The humans breed quickly. There will always be more. And as long as the coalition believes we are civilized, no one will stop us." He stood and walked to his window. Somewhere out there, the human ambassador was probably crying about her lost people. The thought amused him. Humans were emotional creatures. They cried easily and broke even easier. They were perfect prey. Tell our ships to continue the hunts, Thelvok said. But be careful near their core worlds. We do not want to give them a reason to unite. Take only the outer colonies. The weak, the forgotten. No one will miss them. Brel nodded and left to deliver the orders. Back in her quarters, Yuna was writing a message. It was encrypted with the highest security protocols Earth possessed. She sent it to a single address on Earth, a small office that officially did not exist. The message was simple. They are taking our people. The Council will not help. We need options. The response came an hour later. It was even simpler. Options are being prepared. Continue to smile. Do not let them see what we are. Yuna read the message 3 times, then deleted it. She looked at her reflection in the dark screen. Her face was calm. Her eyes were steady. But deep inside, something cold and hard was forming. It was not hatred. Hatred was too hot, too wild. This was something else. This was patience with teeth. She thought about her grandmother again. The old woman had survived the war by pretending to be weak. She had bowed to her enemies. She had served them tea. And when the time came, she had burned their headquarters to the ground while they slept. We are not weak, Yuna whispered to herself. We have just been waiting. The stars continued to shine outside her window. Somewhere in the dark between them, human beings were suffering. Somewhere out there, the Dominion believed they had found easy prey. They would learn the truth soon enough. The gathering storm had begun. And storms, once started, could not be stopped. The bright morning was a beautiful ship. She carried 4,000 colonists to a new world called Haven, where they would build farms and schools and a future for their children. Families had saved for years to buy tickets. Young couples dreamed of raising their babies under an alien sun. Old people hoped to spend their last years in peace, far from the crowded cities of Earth. Sora stood at the observation deck and watched the stars pass by. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice. Her daughter Minji held her hand tightly. The little girl was only 7 years old, but she was already curious about everything. She asked questions constantly. Why are stars hot? Why is space cold? Why do we have to leave Earth? Sora answered each question patiently. She told Minji that they were going to a wonderful place, where they would have a big house and a garden. She told her that Daddy would join them soon, once his work in the military was finished. She did not tell her daughter that she was afraid. She did not tell her that the outer colonies had been disappearing one by one. Mommy, Minji said. When will we see Daddy again? Sora smiled and knelt down to look into her daughter's eyes. Soon, my love. He promised he would come as fast as he can. I miss him. I know. I miss him too. Somewhere far away, on a military base orbiting Mars, Captain Dowan was reviewing reports. He was a quiet man, with a strong jaw and eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. He had served in the United Defense Fleet for 15 years. He had fought in 3 border conflicts and earned more medals than he could count. But none of that mattered to him as much as the small picture on his desk. It showed Sora and Minji smiling at the camera. His family. His entire world. He was supposed to join them in 2 months. His tour of duty was almost over. He had already applied for a desk job on Haven so he could watch Minji grow up. He had promised Sora that his fighting days were done. His communicator buzzed. A message appeared on the screen. It was from Fleet Command, marked urgent. Dowan read it once. Then he read it again. The words did not change. The bright morning had gone silent near the border of Dominion space. Search ships had found debris. No survivors. No bodies. The ship had simply vanished. For a long moment, Do-won did not move. He did not breathe. The world around him became very still and very quiet. He could hear his own heartbeat. He could feel the blood moving through his veins. He thought about Minji's smile. He thought about Sora's laugh. He thought about the garden they would never plant together. Then something inside him changed. It was not anger. Anger was too simple. This was something deeper, something ancient. It was the feeling that comes when a man loses everything and discovers that nothing can hurt him anymore. He stood up slowly. He walked to his commanding officer's door and knocked. Admiral Jang was an old soldier with gray hair and tired eyes. He had seen many things in his long career, but when Do-won walked into his office, he saw something that made him uncomfortable. Do-won's face was completely calm. Too calm. It was the face of a man who had already made a decision. "Admiral," Do-won said, "I need a ship." "Do-won, I heard about the bright morning. I am sorry, but we cannot. I need a small scout ship. No official orders, no records, just a ship and permission to take leave." Admiral Jang leaned back in his chair. "You know what you are asking. If you go into Dominion space without authorization, you will be breaking every law we have. The coalition will condemn us. We could lose our membership. I am not asking the fleet to do anything. I am asking for a ship. What I do with my personal time is my own business." The Admiral was quiet for a long time. He looked at the picture on Do-won's desk. He had a granddaughter about Minji's age. "There is a scout ship in Bay 17, he finally said. "It was scheduled for decommissioning. The paperwork is a mess. It might take weeks to sort out." Do-won nodded. "I did not help you. I do not know where you are going. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir." Do-won left the office and walked straight to Bay 17. Word had already spread through the base. Other soldiers watched him pass. Some nodded. Some saluted. No one tried to stop him. By the time he reached the bay, 3 people were waiting for him. Lieutenant Jaye was a combat specialist. She had cybernetic implants in her arms and eyes that made her faster and stronger than any normal human. She had served with Do-won in the border wars and owed him her life twice over. Sergeant Taeho was an explosives expert. He was a big man, with thick hands and a quiet voice. He could build a bomb from scraps and disable any security system ever made. Medic Yoonji was a trauma surgeon. She had worked in field hospitals during 3 colonial conflicts. She had seen terrible things and saved countless lives. Nothing scared her anymore. Hyunwoo arrived last. The pilot, from the ambassador's office. He had received a message from Yuna, telling him where to go. "I hear you need a pilot," he said. Do-won looked at each of them. "You know what this is. There will be no backup. No rescue. If we fail, Earth will deny everything. Our names will be erased. Our families will receive no honors." GA stepped forward. "They took children, Captain. Children." Taeho nodded. "I have a nephew on one of those colony ships. It could have been him." Eunji simply said, "I go where I am needed." Hyunwoo shrugged. "Someone has to fly the ship." Do-won allowed himself a small nod. It was the closest thing to emotion anyone had seen from him since the news arrived. They boarded the scout ship within the hour. It was old, but fast, with a stealth system that could hide them from most sensors. Hyunwoo ran his hands over the controls and smiled. The ship wanted to fly. As they launched into the darkness, no one spoke. There was nothing to say. They all knew the odds. They all knew what waited for them in Dominion space. But they went anyway, because some things mattered more than survival. Do-won sat alone in his quarters and looked at the picture of his family. Sora's smile, Minji's bright eyes. He touched the screen gently. "I am coming," he whispered. "I will find you. And heaven help anyone who stands in my way." The scout ship vanished into the stars, leaving no trace behind. The hunt had begun. The moon, called Velrath 9, hung in space like a dead eye. It was gray and lifeless, covered in dust and rock. Nothing grew there. Nothing lived there except the prisoners and their guards. The Dominion had built their labor camp deep inside the largest crater, hidden from coalition patrols and prying sensors. They believed no one would ever find it. They were wrong. Dowan's scout ship approached the moon from the dark side, using the shadow to hide their approach. Hyunwoo flew with his hands, barely touching the controls, feeling the ship respond to his every thought. A meteor shower was passing through the system, and he used it perfectly, slipping between the falling rocks, like a fish swimming through a stream. Sensors show a large structure in the northern crater, GA reported. Heavy defenses. At least 200 guards. Maybe more. Can we land undetected? Dowan asked. There is a blind spot near the waste processing plant. It will be tight, but Hyunwoo can do it. Hyunwoo grinned. I can land this ship on a coin if you need me to. They dropped through the thin atmosphere and touched down in a cloud of gray dust. The landing was so soft that Yoonji barely felt it. Hyunwoo powered down the engines and activated the stealth field. From the outside, the ship now looked like just another pile of rocks. The team gathered their weapons and prepared to move. Dowan checked his equipment one last time. He carried no guns, only a combat knife in his hands. He had killed more enemies with those hands than most soldiers killed with bullets. Remember the plan, he said. We move fast and quiet. Find the prisoners. Get them out. We are not here for revenge. We are here for rescue. Taeho nodded, but his eyes said something different. He had seen the reports about what happened in Dominion labor camps. Quiet rescue seemed unlikely. They slipped out of the ship and moved through the shadows. The moon had no real atmosphere, so they wore light-breathing masks. The gravity was weak, making each step feel strange and floaty, but they had trained for this. They moved like ghosts. The waste processing plant was poorly guarded. Why would anyone attack a garbage dump? Taeho cut through the fence with a small laser tool, and they entered the compound. From there, they followed the tunnels deeper into the moon. What they found inside broke something in each of them. The labor camp was a nightmare made real. Thousands of humans worked in the mines, digging precious minerals from the rock with bleeding hands. They were thin and sick and covered in sores. Children as young as 10 carried heavy loads on their bent backs. Guards walked among them with electric whips, striking anyone who moved too slowly. Jae's cybernetic eyes could see in the dark, and she reported everything she saw to the team. There is a medical bay to the east, she said. Survivors from the bright morning might be there. New prisoners are usually processed before being sent to the mines. Dowan nodded. Taeho, plant charges on the main power generators. When I give the signal, shut everything down. Unji, stay with him. Treat any wounded you find. Jae, you are with me. They split up and moved through the tunnels. Dowan and Jie reached the medical bay without being seen. The room was filled with beds, and on those beds lay humans in various stages of broken. Some were unconscious, some were crying, some just stared at the ceiling with empty eyes. Dowan searched every face. He did not find Minji, but in the corner, on a bed stained with blood, he found Sora. She was alive, but barely. Her left arm was broken, and her face was covered in bruises. She had been beaten badly, probably for resisting. When she saw Dowan, her eyes went wide with shock. Dowan? She whispered. Is it really you? He was beside her in an instant. He took her hand gently, afraid of hurting her further. I am here. I came for you. Tears rolled down her cheeks. They took Minji. They took all the children. They said they were sending them to the homeworld. For the arena. Dowan went very still. The arena. He knew what that meant. The Dominion used their arena to watch prisoners fight for their lives. It was entertainment. Sport. Children were easier to catch, and funnier to watch die. When? He asked. His voice was calm, but Jie could hear something dangerous underneath. 3 days ago. A transport ship. Dowan, our baby. I will find her, he said. I swear on my life. I will bring her home. An alarm suddenly screamed through the tunnels. Someone had discovered the dead guards at the perimeter. The camp was waking up. Dowan activated his communicator. Teho. Now. The lights died. Emergency red lighting flickered on, casting everything in the color of blood. Explosions echoed through the complex as the power generators went up in flames. Chaos erupted. Dominion guards ran through the tunnels, but they could not see well in the dark. Humans could. Jie moved like lightning, her cybernetic arms snapping necks and breaking spines. Dowan fought beside her, each strike precise and deadly. They cut through anyone who stood in their way. Prisoners began to understand what was happening. Some ran for the exits. Others picked up fallen weapons and fought back against their captors. Years of rage exploded in a wave of violence. The guards had beaten them, starved them, and killed their friends. Now, it was time to pay. Unji worked frantically in the medical bay, stabilizing the wounded and organizing evacuation. Teho blasted open the main doors, clearing a path to the surface. Through it all, Dowan carried Sora in his arms. She was too weak to walk, but he would not leave her behind. Not for anything. They reached the ship, just as Dominion reinforcements began landing on the far side of the crater. Hyunwoo had the engines running hot, ready to fly. Everyone in, Jie shouted. Move. Prisoners poured into the cargo bay. There was not enough room for everyone, but they squeezed in anyway. Bodies pressed against bodies. The ship groaned under the weight. Hyunwoo lifted off the moment the doors closed. The Dominion fighters tried to intercept, but he was faster. He dove into the meteor shower again, using the chaos of falling rocks to cover their escape. Missiles exploded around them, but none found their mark. When they finally reached safe space, the ship fell silent except for the sound of crying. Survivors held each other. Some prayed. Some simply stared at nothing, unable to believe they were free. Dowan sat with Sora in his arms. Her eyes were closed, but she was breathing. She would live. But their daughter was still out there, in the hands of monsters. He looked out the window at the distant stars. Somewhere among them was the Dominion homeworld. Somewhere out there, Minji was waiting. Set a course, he said quietly. Hyunwoo looked at him. Captain, the Dominion homeworld is the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. No human has ever been there. Dowan's eyes were cold and empty. Then we will be the first. The ship turned toward the darkness, toward the heart of the enemy, and Dowan began to plan. Dominion Prime was a world built on blood. Its cities were monuments to conquest, decorated with the bones of fallen enemies. Its people had never known defeat. For 2,000 years, they had spread across the stars, crushing anyone who stood against them. They believed they were the strongest species in the galaxy. They believed nothing could threaten them in their own home. Dowan stood at the edge of the ash wastes and looked at the distant capital city. The sky was red with pollution from the endless factories. Towers of black metal rose like knives against the horizon. Somewhere in that city was the great arena where Chief Vorath held his tournaments of death. Somewhere in that arena was Minji. The journey had taken 2 weeks. They had dropped the rescued prisoners at a safe station and continued alone. Sora had begged to come with them, but she was too injured. Unji had stayed behind to care for her and the others. The rest of the team had crossed Dominion space, using stolen codes and false identities. They had bribed, lied, and killed their way to the homeworld. Now they stood on enemy ground, with no backup and no escape plan. The city has 17 security checkpoints, Jie said, studying her scanner. Patrols every 15 minutes. Automated defense turrets on every building. This is not going to be easy. Taeho checked his equipment. I have enough explosives to level 3 buildings, maybe 4 if I am creative. We are not here to destroy the city, Do-won said. We are here for my daughter. And the other children, Hyun-woo added quietly. There must be dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Do-won nodded. He had not forgotten. We get them all. Every single one. They waited until darkness fell. Though darkness on Dominion Prime was not very dark. The red sky glowed constantly, and lights blazed from every building. The Dominion never slept. They were always watching. Always hunting. The team moved through the ash wastes toward the outer wall. Security was lighter here, because no one expected an attack from the poisoned wasteland. Only the desperate or the insane would cross those dead lands on foot. They reached the wall without being detected. It was 30 meters high and made of solid metal. Cameras and sensors covered every inch. A direct approach would trigger 100 alarms. Taeho smiled and pulled a small device from his pack. Electromagnetic pulse. Short range. It will blind their systems for exactly 43 seconds. That is not enough time to climb the wall, Jie said. We do not need to climb. Do-won pointed to a drainage pipe at the base of the wall. It was just wide enough for a human to crawl through. The Dominion were too large to fit inside. They had never considered it a weakness. Taeho activated the device. The cameras went dark. The sensors died. 43 seconds. They ran. One by one. They squeezed into the pipe and crawled through the darkness. The smell was terrible, but they did not stop. They emerged on the other side, just as the systems came back online. No alarms, no alerts. They were inside. The streets of the capital were wide and brutal. Everything was designed to impress and intimidate. Statues of great warriors lined the avenues. Flags showing Chief Vorath's symbol hung from every building. Citizens walked in groups, large and confident, never looking down or showing weakness. Do-won and his team moved through the shadows, avoiding the main streets. They looked like workers from the factories, covered in ash and grime. No one paid attention to them. Humans were common here as slaves and servants. Another reminder that they were considered nothing. It took 3 hours to reach the arena. The building was massive, larger than any stadium on Earth. It could hold 100,000 spectators. Tonight, it was full. The sound of cheering echoed through the walls like thunder. GA hacked into the security system and found the prisoner holding cells beneath the arena floor. Children are in Section 9, Heavy Guard. They are scheduled for the main event at midnight. Do-won checked his watch. 2 hours. Taeho, he said. I need a distraction. Something big. Something that will pull the guards away from Section 9. Taeho grinned. How big? Make them think the city is under attack. The explosives expert nodded and disappeared into the night. He would plant his charges on several buildings near the arena. When they went off, the Dominion would panic. They would think an enemy fleet had arrived. Every soldier would rush to defend the city, leaving the arena vulnerable. Jie and Hyun-woo went to secure an exit route. They would steal a transport ship from the military landing pad nearby. If everything went well, they would fly out before anyone knew what had happened. Do-won went in alone. He walked through the service entrance like he belonged there. Workers passed him without a second glance. He wore a servant's uniform he had taken from a dead Dominion slave master. It was too big, but it hid his weapons. The tunnels beneath the arena were a maze of stone and metal. He followed the signs toward Section 9, moving quickly but carefully. 2 guards stood outside the entrance. They were massive, armed with energy rifles, and bored. Do-won did not hesitate. He walked toward them calmly, head down, carrying a cleaning tool. When he was close enough, he moved. The first guard died before he understood what was happening. Do-won's knife sliced through his throat in a single motion. The second guard tried to raise his rifle, but Do-won was already inside his reach. He drove his palm into the guard's chin, snapping his head back. The guard crumpled. Both bodies hit the ground within 3 seconds. Do-won stepped over them and opened the door to Section 9. The children looked up at him with terrified eyes. They were sitting on the cold floor, chained together in groups of 5. Most of them were crying. Some were too exhausted to cry anymore. They ranged in age from 6 to 12 years old. Human children, stolen from their families and brought here to die for entertainment. And there, in the corner, was Minji. She was thinner than he remembered. Her face was dirty, and her clothes were torn. But her eyes were still the same, still bright with that stubborn spark he had loved since the day she was born. "Daddy," she whispered. Do-won crossed the room and knelt before her. He broke her chains with his bare hands, the metal bending under his grip. Then he held her, pulling her close, feeling her small body shake with sobs. "I am here," he said softly. "I came for you. I knew you would come. I told everyone. I said my daddy would come." The other children watched with wide eyes. Some of them began to hope for the first time in weeks. Do-won stood and looked at them all. "I am taking you home. All of you. But first, I need you to be brave. Can you do that?" They nodded, some quickly, some slowly. He began breaking their chains, one by one. Explosions suddenly shook the building. Taeho's distraction beginning right on schedule. The ceiling trembled. Dust fell from the cracks. Alarms began to scream. "Follow me," Do-won said. "Stay close. Stay quiet." He led them through the tunnels toward the surface. More guards appeared, but he cut through them, like wind through leaves. The children watched in silent amazement as this small human destroyed warriors twice his size with nothing but his hands. They emerged into the night just as Hyunwoo brought the transport ship screaming down from the sky. Jai stood at the open door, reaching out to help the children climb aboard. "Move," she shouted. "We have 5 minutes before their fighters get here." The children ran for the ship. Do-won carried those who could not run. He counted them as they boarded. 37 children, all safe, all alive. But as Hyunwoo prepared to launch, Do-won stepped back. "What are you doing?" Jai demanded. "Take them," he said. "Get them out of here. There is something I must do first." "Captain, that is suicide." Do-won looked at his daughter. Minji was crying again, reaching for him. "I will," he promised. "But I need to make sure they never do this again. I need to send a message." He closed the ship's door and stepped away. The transport lifted into the sky and vanished into the smoke. Do-won turned and walked back toward the arena. The tournament was still going. Chief Vorath was still on his throne, probably wondering what all the explosions were about. It was time to introduce himself. The arena was the heart of Dominion culture. It was where they celebrated their power and reminded themselves why they ruled the stars. Every year, the greatest warriors competed for honor and glory. Every month, prisoners fought for their lives while the crowd cheered. Tonight was a special night. Chief Vorath himself had come to watch the human children die. He sat on his throne high above the arena floor, surrounded by his personal guard. He was the largest Dominion anyone had ever seen. Nearly 3 meters tall, with skin like gray stone. His arms were thick with muscle, and his eyes burned with cruel intelligence. On his lap rested the ceremonial spear of his ancestors, a weapon passed down through 50 generations. It was said to be unbreakable, forged from a metal that no longer existed anywhere in the galaxy. The crowd of 100,000 warriors roared as the night's entertainment continued. Gladiators fought in the sand below, spraying blood across the ancient stones. This was what the Dominion lived for. This was their art, their religion, their reason for being. But something was wrong. Reports were coming in about explosions throughout the city. The military channels were filled with panic. Some said they were under attack, Others said it was a terrorist strike. No one knew for certain what was happening. Vorath was not worried. The Dominion homeworld had never been invaded. Their fleet was the largest in the known galaxy. Whatever was happening outside would be dealt with soon enough. He had come to watch children die, and he would not leave disappointed. Then the lights went out. The arena plunged into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in a dim red glow. The crowd fell silent, confused, and uncertain. The Dominion did not like uncertainty. A single figure walked through the Warrior's Gate. The Warrior's Gate was sacred. Only Dominion champions were allowed to enter through it. Only those who had proven themselves in blood and fire. For an outsider to use it was the greatest insult imaginable. But there he was. A human. Alone. He was covered in blood that was not his own. His clothes were torn. His face was calm, almost peaceful. He carried no weapons. He simply walked forward, step by step, until he stood in the center of the arena floor. The crowd was too shocked to react. This was impossible. Humans were prey. Humans were slaves. Humans did not walk into the greatest arena in the galaxy and stand there like they owned the place. Chief Vorath rose from his throne. His voice echoed across the stadium like thunder. "Who are you?" The human looked up at him. There was no fear in his eyes. There was nothing at all except cold, empty purpose. "My name is Dowan," he said. His voice was quiet, but somehow everyone in the arena could hear him. "You took my daughter. You took my people. I have come to return the insult." Vorath laughed. It was a terrible sound, like rocks grinding together. "One human comes to threaten the Dominion? You are brave. But bravery does not stop you from dying." He gestured to his elite guard. 20 of them, the finest warriors on the planet. They descended from the throne platform and surrounded Dowan in a circle of death. "Kill him slowly," Vorath commanded. "Make him scream." The first guard attacked. He was fast, his claws slashing through the air like knives. Dowan moved faster. He sidestepped the attack and caught the guard's arm. In a single motion, he twisted and pulled. The arm came free from its socket, with a wet snap. The guard screamed and fell. Dowan took his dropped weapon, a curved blade, and threw it into the throat of the second attacker. The remaining guards hesitated. Just for a moment. Just long enough. What happened next was not a fight. It was a lesson. Dowan moved through them like water through stones. He used their own size against them, ducking under their swings and striking at joints and pressure points. He broke arms with precise hits. He shattered knees with sweeping kicks. He drove his fingers into eyes and crushed throats with his palm. The crowd watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this. The elite guard, the finest warriors in the Dominion, were being destroyed by a single unarmed human. Within 2 minutes, 18 of them were dead or dying on the sand. The last 2 tried to run. Dowan caught them before they reached the gate. He stood alone in a circle of fallen giants, breathing steadily, not even tired. Chief Vorath stared down at him. For the first time in his long life, he felt something unfamiliar, something cold in his chest. He did not recognize it as fear, because he had never felt fear before. "Impressive," he said, forcing his voice to stay calm. "But you cannot defeat me. I have killed 1,000 warriors in this arena. I am undefeated." Dowan looked up at him. "Then come down and make it 1,001. The crowd gasped. No one spoke to the chief this way. No one challenged him so directly. Vorath gripped his ceremonial spear and rose to his full height. He was twice Dowan's size. His muscles were like cables of steel. The spear in his hands had killed more enemies than anyone could count. He descended from his throne and walked onto the arena floor. Each step shook the ground. The crowd roared their approval. This was what they wanted. Their chief, their god king, would crush this insect personally. "You came here to die," Vorath said. Dowan did not respond. He simply waited, his hands loose at his sides. Vorath attacked with all his speed and power. The spear shot forward like a bolt of lightning, aimed directly at Dowan's heart. Dowan did not try to dodge. He did not try to block. He simply reached out and caught the spear in mid-thrust. His hands wrapped around the ancient weapon and held it still. Vorath pushed with all his strength. The spear did not move. He pushed harder. Nothing. For the first time, confusion appeared on his face. This was impossible. No creature in the galaxy was strong enough to stop his thrust. The humans were supposed to be weak. The humans were supposed to be soft. Dowan looked him in the eye. There was no anger there. No hatred. Just cold, absolute certainty. "You made a mistake," he said softly. "You thought because we are small, we are weak. You thought because we die young, we are afraid of death. You thought because we laugh and cry and love, we could not become monsters." He tightened his grip on the spear. "You were wrong." The metal screamed as it bent. Vorath watched in horror as his ancestral weapon, the unbreakable symbol of Dominion power, twisted in the human's hands. Then it snapped in two. The sound echoed through the silent arena like a funeral bell. Half the spear fell to the sand. The other half remained in Dowan's grip. He dropped it at Vorath's feet. "This is your warning," he said. The broken spear lay in the sand between them. Chief Vorath stared at it, like a man watching his world collapse. That spear had been the symbol of Dominion strength for 50 generations. It had been carried by the greatest leaders of his people. It was said that as long as the spear remained whole, the Dominion would never fall. Now it was broken, snapped like a dry twig by a human. Dowan stood before the most powerful warrior in the galaxy and showed no fear. The silence in the arena was complete. 100,000 Dominion warriors watched from their seats, unable to believe what they were seeing. Some of them began to whisper. Others simply stared with open mouths. Vorath finally found his voice. It came out as a growl. "You will die for this." "Maybe," Dowan said, "but not today, and not by your hand." He turned away from the chief and looked up at the crowd. His voice rang out across the stadium, amplified somehow by the arena's own speaker system. Jai had hacked into it before she left. Every word Dowan spoke was being broadcast to every screen on the planet. "People of the Dominion," he said, "listen carefully. I have something to say." Vorath lunged at him from behind, claws extended, ready to tear him apart. Dowan moved without looking. He stepped aside, grabbed Vorath's arm, and twisted. The chief's massive body flipped through the air and slammed into the sand. Before he could rise, Dowan was standing over him, one foot on his chest. "Wait your turn," he said calmly. Then he continued speaking to the crowd. "For years, you have taken our people. You have stolen them from their homes. You have worked them to death in your mines. You have killed them for sport in this arena. You did this because you thought we were weak, because you thought no one would stop you." He lifted his foot and stepped back. Vorath tried to rise, but his body would not obey. Something was wrong with his spine. He could not feel his legs. Dowan walked in a slow circle around him, his voice never rising above a conversational tone. "You hunted our children. You brought them here to watch them die. You thought it was funny. You thought it was entertainment. You thought we would cry and beg and do nothing else." He stopped walking and faced the royal box where Vorath's advisors sat in terrified silence. "You were wrong about us." The screens around the arena showed his face, calm and cold and absolutely without mercy. "We are not a weak species. We only seemed weak because we chose to be peaceful. We chose to trade instead of conquer. We chose to build instead of destroy. We made that choice because we had seen what war does to worlds. We had seen what violence does to souls. We hoped you would learn the same lessons someday. He knelt beside Vorath and looked into his eyes. But you did not learn. You took our kindness for weakness, our patience for fear, our mercy for surrender. You pushed and pushed and pushed, thinking we would never push back. He stood and addressed the cameras directly. So here is my message. Not from the human government, not from our military. From me. From one father who came looking for his daughter. His voice dropped lower, colder. Return every human you have taken. Every single one. From every mine, every camp, every auction house, every arena, across your territory. You have 30 days. He paused. If even one is missing, we will not send soldiers. We will not send diplomats. We will not send threats. We will come ourselves. Every father, every mother, every brother and sister who has lost someone to your cruelty. We will come in our thousands and our millions. We will come with nothing but our hands and our hate. And we will not stop until your species is a memory and your worlds are dust. The arena was utterly silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. You think you know war, Dowan continued. You think you understand violence. You have played at it for 2,000 years, conquering species that could not fight back. But you have never faced a species that had nothing left to lose. You have never faced humans who have stopped being afraid of death. He looked down at Vorath one last time. I could kill you now. It would be easy. But I will not. A dead chief becomes a martyr. A living chief who was defeated by a single human becomes an embarrassment. Every time your people look at you, they will remember this night. They will remember that the unbreakable spear broke. They will remember that the strongest warrior in the Dominion lay helpless at my feet. He turned and walked toward the warrior's gate. 30 days. Do not test us again. No one tried to stop him. The guards at the gate stepped aside without a word. The crowd parted before him like water. They had come to watch humans die. Instead, they had watched their god-king fall. Dowan walked out of the arena and into the burning streets of the capital. Teho's explosions had created chaos throughout the city. Emergency vehicles screamed past him. Soldiers ran in every direction, trying to respond to threats that did not exist. He walked calmly through it all, heading toward the extraction point on the outskirts of the city. Hyunwoo was waiting with the transport ship. Jai stood at the door, her cybernetic eyes scanning for threats. You are insane, she said as Dowan climbed aboard. Absolutely insane. Probably, he agreed. The ship lifted off and shot into the sky. Below them, the Dominion capital was in chaos. Fires burned, sirens wailed, and in the great arena, Chief Vorath lay in the sand, surrounded by his broken guards and his broken spear. The transport ship broke through the atmosphere and jumped to light speed. They were gone before the Dominion fleet could respond. Inside the cargo bay, Minji was waiting. She ran to her father and threw her arms around him. Dowan held her close, and for the first time since this nightmare began, his face softened. Tears he had been holding back finally fell. I told you I would come, he whispered. I knew you would, she said. I always knew. The other children watched them, some crying, some smiling for the first time in weeks. They were going home. Against all odds, against all reason, they were going home. Jie sat in the cockpit with Hyunwoo and watched the stars streak past. Do you think they will do it? She asked. Return the prisoners? Hyunwoo shrugged. After what we just did? After the whole galaxy watched their chief get humiliated by a single human? They would be stupid not to. The Dominion has been stupid before. True. But they have never been scared before. Did you see their faces? They looked at Dowan like he was a demon from their worst nightmares. Jie nodded slowly. Maybe he is. Behind them, Dowan sat with his daughter in his arms. The cold emptiness inside him was fading now, replaced by something warm and fierce. He had done what he came to do. He had sent his message. Now all he wanted was to go home and never fight again. But deep down, he knew the truth. The galaxy had changed tonight. Humanity had shown its teeth, and things would never be the same. The video spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species with access to the network watched it within hours. A single human walking into the greatest arena in the known galaxy. A single human defeating 20 elite guards with his bare hands. A single human breaking the unbreakable spear and standing over the fallen chief of the Dominion. The message was clear. Humanity was not what everyone thought. On the coalition station Eternal Accord, the reaction was immediate. Species that had ignored human complaints for years suddenly wanted to talk. Ambassadors who had treated Yuna like an annoyance now greeted her with careful respect. The High Council called an emergency session. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered in the Great Hall. And for the first time in centuries, they were all looking at the human ambassador. Ambassador Yuna, the council leader said, "We have received disturbing reports about an unauthorized military action on Dominion Prime. Are these reports accurate?" Yuna stood calmly at her podium. She wore the same patient smile she always wore. "I am not aware of any military action," she said. "If you are referring to the incident at the arena, that was not an official operation. It was simply a father looking for his daughter. A father who killed dozens of Dominion warriors and humiliated their chief in front of the entire planet? Yes, that father. Is there a problem?" The council leader shifted uncomfortably. "The Dominion is demanding that Earth hand over this man for punishment. They are threatening war if we do not comply." Yuna's smile did not waver. "With respect, council leader, the Dominion has been threatening many things for many years. They threatened to expand their territory. They threatened to increase their military. They threatened to take what they wanted from weaker species. And they did all of those things while the coalition watched and did nothing." She looked around the chamber at each representative. "They took our people. They enslaved them. They killed our children for entertainment. We brought evidence of this to the council, and we were ignored. We asked for help, and we were dismissed. So one man went to get his family back. Is that really so surprising?" No one answered. "As for their demands," Yuna continued, "Earth will not hand over any citizen for Dominion punishment. If they want war, they are welcome to try. But I think they should watch that video one more time before making any decisions." The chamber fell silent. The representatives looked at each other nervously. They had all seen the video. They had all watched a human do things that should have been impossible. 2 weeks later, the Dominion began returning prisoners. Ships arrived at human colonies carrying the survivors of years of captivity. Miners from Velrath 9. Workers from a dozen other hidden camps. Children who had been taken for the arena. Some were healthy. Many were not. All of them were alive. Chief Vorath was found dead in his chambers 3 days after the deadline passed. His own advisors had killed him. They feared what the humans might do if they thought he was responsible for any delays. They blamed him for bringing shame upon their people. They called him weak. A new chief was chosen, one who immediately announced that the Dominion would honor all coalition treaties and respect the territory of other species. The era of expansion was over. On the coalition station, Ambassador Yuna received a formal invitation to join the council as a full member. There were no objections, no debates, no tests or evaluations. When she accepted, she did so with the same calm smile she had worn since the day she arrived. "We are honored to be part of this coalition," she said. "We hope to contribute to the peace and prosperity of all species. We have always believed in cooperation over conflict." Behind her words, every being in the chamber heard the unspoken message. They had seen what happened when someone took from humanity. They had no desire to learn what would happen if someone tried again. Across the galaxy, other species began quietly changing their policies. Trade agreements with human colonies were renegotiated to be more fair. Expansion plans near human space were canceled. Companies that had been exploiting human workers suddenly found new respect for their employees. And in the darker corners of the network, a new saying began to spread: do not touch their children, do not test their patience, and whatever you do, never make them come looking for you. On Earth, Do-won returned home with his family. Sora had recovered from her injuries, though the scars would never fully fade. Minji had nightmares sometimes, but they grew less frequent as the months passed. The garden they had dreamed of was planted in their backyard. Admiral Jang offered Do-won any position he wanted in the fleet. Medals, promotions, a place in history. I did what I needed to do, he said. I am done fighting now. He became a teacher at the local school. He coached the children's sports teams. He helped his neighbors with their gardens. He lived quietly, peacefully, exactly as he had always planned. Sometimes reporters came to ask for interviews. Sometimes military officials came to ask for advice. Sometimes young soldiers came just to meet the man from the video. Do-hwan turned them all away, politely. I am not a hero, he would say. But in the evening, when the sun set and the stars came out, he would sometimes stand in his garden and look up at the sky. He would think about the arena. He would think about the broken spear. He would think about the fear in Vorath's eyes. He had never wanted to be a monster. He had spent his whole life trying to be kind and patient and peaceful, just like his wife, just like his daughter. But when they had taken his family, something ancient had woken inside him, something that every human carried in their blood, buried deep beneath the civility and the culture and the kindness. The galaxy had seen that something for the first time. They had seen what humans became when you pushed them too far. And they were afraid. Good, Do-won thought. Let them be afraid. Let them remember. Because if they ever forgot, if they ever decided to test humanity again, there would not be just one father looking for his child. There would be millions. Minji came running out of the house, calling for her father. Dinner was ready. Sora was waiting. Life was calling. Do-won smiled. A real smile this time. Warm and genuine. He took his daughter's hand and walked back toward the light of their home. Behind him, the stars continued to shine. Somewhere out there, the galaxy had learned a lesson. Somewhere out there, predators had discovered they were not the only monsters in the dark. And somewhere out there, a saying was becoming a proverb, passed from species to species, world to world, until it became known throughout the cosmos. The humans were not weak. They were waiting. The story spread. The legend grew. And humanity walked among the stars. No longer prey. No longer ignored. No longer underestimated. They had earned their place. And they would never let anyone forget it.